Credit cards, weapons of enslavement or tools of power. Full audiobook. Chapter 1. The seduction of plastic. You remember the first time a piece of plastic felt like a key to an entirely new life. The card was smooth, light, and carried a promise that cash could never hold. It was not just a payment method. It was a badge of belonging, a signal that you had stepped into a world where doors open more easily and opportunities appear more abundant. The banks and advertisers knew exactly how to dress it up, surrounding credit cards with images of luxury cars, exotic vacations, and elegant dinners. The card in your wallet whispered one thing again and again: freedom. Yet freedom wrapped in glitter often hides the strings. You walk into a store, swipe the card, and feel powerful because no cash leaves your hand. The purchase feels detached from effort, as though you borrowed a slice of tomorrow to satisfy today. But the machinery behind the card is carefully designed to make you forget that every swipe is a small loan. When you buy a jacket for $200 with a card carrying an annual interest rate of 20%, that jacket could easily cost you $240 by the time you finish paying for it. The bank's profit rests in the illusion that $200 feels small and that the bill can always wait. Imagine a young man named Daniel, freshly employed in 1998. He receives his first shiny envelope in the mail, embossed with golden letters. You are pre-approved. The letter congratulates him, not for anything he achieved, but for being selected. Daniel feels honored, even proud. He activates the card, and suddenly he is not just Daniel, the entry-level worker. He is Daniel with purchasing power. He takes friends to dinner, spends $300, and pays only the minimum balance of $15 the following month. The dinner memory fades, but the debt remains, silently growing. Within a year, his balance reaches $3,000. The interest compounds, turning dinners and gadgets into a weight that follows him for years. What Daniel experiences is not an exception, but a pattern. Millions were ushered into the same dance, seduced by reward points, smiling models, and slogans about limitless living. Credit card companies studied psychology as much as finance. They knew that humans crave status, convenience, and instant gratification. They knew that when you do not feel the physical pain of handing over cash, you spend more freely. They knew that if they could convince you that carrying a card made you sophisticated, you would defend that belief even while drowning in statements. Consider the way airports transformed the card into an identity. Signs everywhere proclaimed exclusive lounge access with your premium card. A traveler with a piece of plastic could sip champagne, while others waited in crowded terminals. The cost of that luxury was hidden not in the lounge, but in the quiet mathematics of interest charges and annual fees. If 10,000 travelers each carried a balance of $5,000, the banks collected hundreds of millions over time in interest payments. The illusion of privilege masked the reality of enslavement. This seduction is not always obvious. Sometimes it appears in the form of safety and security. Don't carry cash, they say. Carry the card. It protects you from theft, from inconvenience, from being left stranded. And it is true, the card has benefits. But in the glow of those benefits, the darker side remains concealed. The card is less about protecting your wallet and more about binding your future income. Each signature is a contract. You agree to trade a portion of your upcoming labor for something you may not even remember buying. The story of credit cards begins with charm, but beneath the charm lies a carefully orchestrated system. The seduction of plastic is not only about making you spend. It is about making you believe that spending is freedom. That belief is the first thread in a web that will tighten with every swipe. The glow of the card in your wallet does not fade quickly. At first, it feels like a companion that never says no, a silent partner ready to step forward whenever your desires outpace your earnings. You might justify the purchase of a $600 television because the payment can be broken into manageable pieces. What you do not see is a shadow of interest hovering in the background, ready to inflate the cost into $800 or more if you stretch the repayment over time. The seduction thrives on this invisibility. Think about how birthdays and holidays reinforce this pull. You want to surprise your child with the latest gaming console, or your spouse with a piece of jewelry that shines in the store window. Cash in hand might hesitate, weighing whether the budget allows for such gifts. The card, however, erases hesitation. The smile on your loved one's face makes the swipe feel righteous, even noble. But beneath that warm glow is a quiet contract that ties your future work hours to a moment of celebration. What begins as joy may linger as stress when the bill arrives 30 days later, demanding payment with the force of law. The banks count on this rhythm. They understand that most people will pay enough to avoid penalties, but not enough to escape debt. A balance of $4,000 with an interest rate near 20% can take more than 20 years to erase if you only meet the minimum payment. By then, you might have paid double the original amount in interest alone. The car that once felt like a friend becomes a silent overseer, ensuring that a portion of your income is redirected month after month. Consider Maria, a nurse in 2005. She worked double shifts to support her family, and the car became her safety net. Groceries, gas, occasional treats for her children. Everything landed on the card when cash ran short. At first, she was proud that she never missed a payment, but the balances accumulated. $500 became $2,000, then $5,000. Each month she sent in $150, believing she was staying responsible. What she did not realize was that $100 of that went directly to interest. After 5 years, she had paid nearly $6,000, yet still owed close to the original amount. Her loyalty to the card disguised her bondage to the system. The psychology of this trap is subtle. You are taught to equate possession of a car with adulthood, sophistication, even patriotism. Commercials in the 1970s and 1980s spoke of freedom, empowerment, and belonging to a select group. The message was never about debt. It was about identity. You were not simply buying groceries. You were affirming that you were someone who deserved convenience and recognition. Every advertisement turned the act of borrowing into a symbol of success. Even the language supports the illusion. When the statement arrives, it lists a credit limit. The word suggests generosity, as if the bank extended trust because you were worthy. But that limit is not your money. It is a ceiling to measure how much debt they're willing to profit from. If the limit is $10,000, the bank hopes you will use it and then linger under its weight, producing streams of interest payments year after year. Your supposed privilege is nothing more than a leash polished and disguised as a crown. The seduction of plastic works because it blends truth with illusion. Yes, a card brings convenience, safety, and access. Yes, it can smooth over emergencies or open doors in travel and business. But wrapped around those truths is a design that leads millions into silent servitude. To understand this is not to reject a card outright, but to see clearly that what glitters in your hand can either empower you or entrap you. The shine of plastic is only the beginning. What matters is whether you learn to see past the glow. Chapter 2. The hidden cost of borrowed money. The bill arrives quietly, folded inside a crisp envelope, its numbers arranged neatly across the page. At first glance, it looks harmless, just a record of your monthly spending. You see the purchases: groceries for $150, gas for $80, a weekend getaway that cost $500, and a handful of smaller charges that seemed insignificant at the time. But at the bottom of the page lies a figure in bold: the minimum payment due. It tempts you with its modesty. You think, if I can just pay this amount, I will be fine. That thought is the bait, and millions bite into it every single month. The truth is that the minimum payment is not designed to help you. It is designed to keep you tethered. Imagine carrying a balance of $4,000 with an interest rate of 19%. If you choose to pay only the minimum, which might be around $80, more than half of that money will go straight into the pocket of the bank as interest. The remainder barely scratches the surface of the actual debt. You can spend over 2 decades trapped in this cycle, paying more than $8,000 in interest just to extinguish the original $4,000. What feels like a lifeline is really a chain. The hidden cost does not announce itself loudly. It accumulates slowly, day after day, in the silent work of compound interest. Just as compound interest can build wealth when you invest, it can also hollow out your income when you borrow unwisely. If you place $10,000 into a savings account growing at 5% annually, after 20 years you would have more than $26,000. But if you borrow $10,000 at the same rate and fail to repay quickly, the equation reverses. The compounding that could have enriched you becomes the same force that enslaves you. Take the case of Jerome, a college student in 2011 who loved technology. He bought a new laptop for $1,200, thinking it would help him with his studies and part-time work. When the bill came, he paid only the minimum of $25. It felt trivial, as though he had cleverly avoided the burden of a large expense. But by the end of that year, he had charged more clothes, books, nights out with friends. His balance swelled to $3,000. After graduation, while struggling to find steady employment, he realized he had already paid more than $2,000 in interest, yet still owed nearly the same balance. The laptop that once symbolized progress became a reminder of how easy it is to slip into financial quicksand. What makes this trap so dangerous is that it disguises itself as generosity. The bank tells you that you are free to pay as little as you like, that they trust you enough to set the terms of your repayment. But this freedom is a mirage. The terms are already tilted against you. Behind the smiling advertisements and sleek rewards programs stands an empire built on the assumption that most people will not repay quickly. Each time you settle for the minimum, you are placing another stone on the path toward long-term debt, one that benefits the bank far more than it benefits you. The hidden cost of borrowed money is not just measured in dollars and cents. It eats into your energy, your opportunities, your peace of mind. Every payment you send is money you cannot invest, experiences you cannot afford, security you cannot build. The interest does not simply drain your account. It drains your future. And unless you recognize this truth, the quiet weight of borrowed money will grow heavier with every passing month. The sting of interest is rarely felt in the moment of purchase. When you swipe your card for a $200 dinner, the evening feels light, joyful, and unburdened by thought of repayment. The pain arrives later, stretched out over months, quietly compounded in ways most people never calculate. By the time you finish paying for that one dinner with only minimum payments, you may have surrendered $300 or more. The memory of the meal fades, but the cost lingers long after the last bite is forgotten. This delay between pleasure and payment is what makes the system so profitable. Human beings are wired for instant gratification. You want the shoes today, the concert tickets tonight, the vacation this summer. The credit card makes it possible, whispering that tomorrow will take care of itself. But tomorrow rarely feels as abundant as today. Tomorrow brings rent, bills, unexpected expenses, and suddenly the repayment feels heavier than the purchase ever did. The banks have built an empire on this very delay, knowing that people will trade future stability for present satisfaction. Consider Lena, a single mother in 2014. She wanted her daughter to have a birthday party as special as the ones her classmates enjoyed. She charged $300 for decorations, food, and gifts. It seemed manageable, a small sacrifice for her child's happiness. But the balance joined her existing debt of $2,000, and interest accumulated steadily. Over the next 5 years, she paid more than $4,000 toward that card. Yet her balance stubbornly hovered near $1,500. The party had lasted one afternoon, but its shadow stretched across half a decade of her life. The hidden cost also shows up in lost opportunities. Every dollar funneled into interest is a dollar that could have been invested, saved, or used to build something lasting. Imagine if Lena had placed those same $4,000 into a modest investment earning 6% annually. In 5 years, she would have grown her money to over $5,300. Instead, the same amount vanished into the invisible vault of a bank, leaving her with nothing but statements as evidence. Interest does not simply cost you more for what you buy. It robs you of what you could have had. Even those who believe they are disciplined can fall prey to subtler costs. Annual fees, late charges, foreign transaction penalties. All of these lurk beneath the surface of the agreement. You may think you are in control, paying your balance in full each month until one missed payment triggers a penalty and raises your interest rate. A single oversight can transform a tool of convenience into a drain on your finances. The system is designed to capitalize on human error, magnifying small mistakes into long-term burdens. The true danger of borrowed money is not the number printed on the statement. It is the illusion that the number is manageable. The hidden cost is psychological as much as financial. You learn to live with debt as though it were normal, to accept that carrying balances is part of modern life. You silence the unease by comparing yourself to others who own more, never realizing that normalization is the very goal of the industry. The longer you accept it, the deeper you sink. When you hold a credit card, you hold both a convenience and a contract. The convenience is obvious. The contract is hidden. The moment you swipe, you agree to give away more than money. You give away time, freedom, and peace of mind. To borrow unwisely is to let compounding interest become your jailer, and the bars of that cell are invisible until they have already closed around you. Chapter 3. Stories from the Debt Trap. Debt rarely arrives as a thunderclap. It slips in quietly, disguised as generosity, as a solution, as a way to belong. At first, you do not even notice its weight. Then, little by little, it begins to shape your choices, narrow your options, and dictate your future. The most powerful warnings do not come from abstract numbers or charts, but from the lives of those who once believed they were in control. Take the story of Anthony, a young teacher in 2007. His salary was modest, but he wanted to furnish his first apartment quickly to create a home that felt welcoming. He used his card for a sofa costing $1,000, a dining table for $800, and a handful of smaller items that added up to another $700. In total, $2,500. He told himself it was manageable, that his steady paycheck would cover the bills. But with interest piling up at 18%, his balance grew faster than his payments could shrink it. Within 2 years, the original $2,500 had become nearly $4,000. By then, the excitement of a decorated apartment had long faded, and Anthony found himself eating at that same table, staring at a mountain of statements he could not escape. Or consider Evelyn, a nurse with 2 children. In 2012, her car broke down, and she needed it for work. The repair cost was $1,200, money she did not have in savings. Her card became the lifeline. At first, she felt grateful, but then came the groceries, the school clothes, the holiday gifts, all sliding onto the same balance. Within 3 years, she owed $9,000. The interest alone consumed almost $200 of her paycheck each month, money she could have used for her children's future. She often lay awake at night, calculating how many years it might take to be free. These are not extreme cases. They are ordinary lives. Debt spreads like ivy, creeping slowly until it covers every wall. A small purchase today, an unexpected expense tomorrow, and suddenly the balance feels immovable. The banks count on this rhythm, knowing that people will cling to hope, will pay the minimum, will believe they are making progress while the ground beneath them quietly shifts. There was also Marcus, an entrepreneur in 1999, eager to launch his own catering business. He needed equipment and supplies, so he leaned on his card. $10,000 of debt felt like an investment in his dream, but the business struggled, and the revenue he imagined never materialized. The debt, however, was relentless. Each month, the interest added nearly $200 to his balance. Within a few years, his dream had dissolved, and the only thing left was a balance he could not clear. He described it later as carrying a ghost that followed him everywhere, whispering reminders of failure every time he opened his wallet. These stories reveal what numbers cannot. Debt does not just take money. It takes sleep, peace, and dignity. It changes the way you walk into a store, the way you open your mailbox, the way you think about tomorrow. It is not merely financial enslavement. It is emotional captivity. And once you've felt its grip, you realize that the trap was never just about overspending. It was about believing the promise that the card would always be your ally. Debt does not discriminate. It captures students, workers, parents, and retirees alike, wrapping its fingers around every stage of life. The stories differ in detail, but the pattern repeats itself with chilling similarity. A swipe that feels harmless, a balance that feels temporary, an interest rate that quietly multiplies the weight. Take Clara, a college student in 2003. She was the first in her family to attend university, proud and determined to succeed. Her scholarship covered tuition, but living expenses stretched her budget thin. One car was meant to fill the gaps: groceries, bus passes, the occasional night out. Within months, her balance grew to $1,500. By the time she graduated, it had doubled. Not because she had splurged on luxuries, but because interest compounded faster than her payments. When she finally landed her first job, her paycheck felt smaller than it should have, already divided between rent, utilities, and the ghost of her college years. Or think of Harold, a factory worker who had always prided himself on discipline. In 2010, a layoff caught him unprepared. He used his card for groceries, for gas, for bills, telling himself it was only temporary. Temporary stretched into 18 months. By the time he found another job, he carried a balance of $12,000. Even with steady work again, he discovered the cruel math of interest. At 19%, nearly $200 a month disappeared into interest charges alone. He worked harder than ever, but the balance refused to budge. He often said the debt felt heavier than unemployment itself. Then there was Isabel, a retiree in 2016. She had raised her children, worked faithfully for decades, and believed she had earned her peace. But rising medical costs and a fixed income drove her to lean on a card she once used only for travel. Prescriptions, doctor visits, even groceries found their way onto the balance. At first, it seemed like a solution, a way to maintain dignity without asking for help. Yet within 4 years, she owed $8,000. At 72, she found herself working part-time at a local shop, not to stay busy but to pay the minimums. The irony was bitter. After a lifetime of work, her so-called golden years were tarnished by plastic. Each of these lives illustrates a simple truth. Debt is not just about numbers. It is about time. Time you could have spent building, saving, resting. Time you instead spend looking backward, paying for moments that have already passed. A dinner in 2011, a car repair in 2015, a prescription in 2019. Still alive in 2025 as lines on a statement demanding attention. The trap is not merely financial. It is psychological. Debt convinces you that you are alone, that your mistakes are unique, that shame is your only companion. Yet the reality is that millions live under the same weight, bound not by extravagance, but by ordinary needs and the quiet power of compounding interest. The stories differ in names and years, but together they form a chorus of warning. Debt whispers promises of help, but delivers chains. To listen closely to these stories is to see through the illusion, to understand that every card swipe carries not only a purchase but a potential shadow. And until you face that shadow, the trap remains ready to close again and again. Chapter 4. Breaking the Chains. There comes a moment when the weight of debt becomes unbearable, when the stack of statements on the kitchen table feels heavier than the furniture in the room. You sit there, staring at numbers that refuse to shrink, and realize something must change. This moment of clarity often arrives not with fanfare, but with quiet desperation. The late-night anxiety, the phone call from collector, or the sharp realization that you are working not for yourself, but for a balance that never disappears. It is in this moment that the first crack appears in the chains. The process of breaking free is rarely glamorous. It is not about sudden windfalls or miraculous luck. It begins with brutal honesty, looking at every debt, every interest rate, every minimum payment, and acknowledging the reality you face. Imagine you owe $7,000 spread across 3 cards, $3,000 on one at 19%, $2,000 on another at 16%, and $2,000 more at 21%. It feels overwhelming until you write it down, until you strip away the vagueness and give the monster a name. What once seemed like a fog of numbers becomes a concrete target, and targets can be defeated. The next step is strategy. Many find success in the method of focusing on the highest interest rate first, channeling every spare dollar toward the card that costs the most while paying the minimums on the others. In the example above, attacking the $2,000 at 21% first saves you hundreds in interest over time. Others prefer the psychological boost of the snowball method, paying off the smallest balance first to gain momentum. Whether through mathematics or motivation, the key is to direct energy with intention rather than scatter it aimlessly. Consider David, who in 2009 found himself with nearly $10,000 of debt. He worked 2 jobs, yet progress felt impossible until he committed to the avalanche strategy. Every extra hour he worked, every unnecessary expense he cut, every unexpected bit of income, all of it went straight to the highest interest card. Within 3 years, He had cleared every balance. What he remembered most was not the math, but the mindset, the sense of fighting for his freedom one payment at a time. Breaking chains also requires reshaping habits. Debt is not only about numbers. It is about behavior, cutting a subscription here, cooking at home instead of dining out, resisting the lure of impulse purchases. Each choice is a chisel striking against the links of the chain. At first, it feels insignificant, but over time, these choices carve a new reality. The discipline that once seemed impossible becomes natural, and the habits that once fueled debt transform into habits that fuel freedom. The journey out of debt is rarely fast, but every step forward is proof that the chains are not indestructible. The creditors want you to believe you are powerless, that the weight is permanent, yet history shows otherwise. Ordinary people, armed with honesty, discipline, and persistence, have broken free. They have discovered that the greatest strength lies not in earning more, but in refusing to surrender control of what they already have. Freedom begins to feel real the first time you pay off a card entirely. The statement arrives, and instead of a balance demanding attention, you see a clean slate. That moment carries a power far greater than numbers. It is a psychological victory, a declaration that you are no longer bound to yesterday's decisions. For many, it becomes a spark that fuels the rest of the journey. But the path to freedom is not only about payments. It is about resilience. Emergencies will arise. A broken car, a medical bill, an unexpected repair can threaten to pull you back into the cycle. That is why building a small emergency fund, even $500 set aside, can act as armor. With it, you are less likely to reach for the card at the first sign of trouble. The fund does not erase risk, but buys you time and peace, two of the most valuable forms of currency. Take the example of Hannah, who in 2013 faced nearly $12,000 in debt. She worked tirelessly, but every time she made progress, a new crisis pushed her back. At the advice of a mentor, she saved a modest emergency fund before attacking the balances. When her car needed a $400 repair, she paid cash instead of swiping her card. That one choice prevented her from adding months of extra interest. Within 4 years, she was debt-free. She often said the most powerful part of her journey was not the numbers she conquered, but the fears she silenced. Breaking the chains also involves confronting the emotional side of money. Debt often carries shame, convincing you that you are alone, irresponsible, or unworthy. But shame paralyzes, responsibility empowers. When you replace shame with accountability, you take back your agency. Some people find strength in community, support groups, financial classes, or even friends walking the same path. Others find it in faith, discipline, or sheer determination. What matters is refusing to carry the weight in silence. Negotiation can also be a weapon in this battle. Creditors would rather receive something than nothing. Calling them to request a lower interest rate, to consolidate balances, or to settle for reduced payoff can feel intimidating, but it often works. Imagine lowering a rate from 20% to 15% on a balance of $8,000. That change could save you more than $400 in a single year. One phone call, a few minutes of courage, can shorten your sentence in the prison of debt. At the heart of breaking free lies a simple truth. Debt feeds on passivity. As long as you ignore it, pay the minimums, or hope it disappears, it thrives. The moment you confront it, attack it, and refuse to bow to its illusions, the chains weaken. Each payment becomes not just a financial transaction, but a statement of defiance. Each sacrifice becomes a step toward freedom. One day, when the final balance is gone, you look back and realize the debt was never just about money. It was about control, whether your future will belong to you or to an institution profiting from your past. To break the chains is to reclaim your tomorrow. Chapter 5. Turning credit into leverage. To believe that credit cards are only weapons of enslavement is to miss their other face. Just as a knife can be used to harm or to prepare a meal, a card can drain you or empower you depending on how you hold it. The same system that traps millions can be turned into a tool of leverage when handled with clarity and discipline. The power lies not in the plastic itself, but in the way you use it. At the heart of leverage is control. When you pay your balance in full every month, the interest trap vanishes. The bank cannot profit from compounding charges if you never carry them forward. Instead, you gain the convenience, the rewards, and protections without surrendering a cent beyond what you chose to spend. Imagine charging $1,000 in a month for groceries, gas, and bills, then paying the full amount when the statement arrives. You enjoy the convenience of a single transaction, the safety of fraud protection, and perhaps even cashback or airline miles, all without the hidden cost. Think of Alicia, who in 2017 began using her credit card strategically. She paid her utilities, groceries, and insurance on the card, expenses she had to cover anyway. Each month, she repaid the full balance on time. Over the course of the year, she spent $24,000 on necessities and earned nearly $600 in cash back. That $600 became a small emergency fund. The very system designed to profit from her transformed into a system that paid her for discipline. Leverage also extends to building a credit history. In a world where landlord, employers, and lenders often check your financial record, a strong credit score becomes an invisible asset. Timely payments on a credit card contribute to that score, signaling reliability. A person with excellent credit can secure a mortgage with a lower interest rate, saving tens of thousands of dollars over the life of a loan. Imagine borrowing $200,000 for a home. At a higher rate, you might pay $50,000 more over 30 years than someone with a stronger score. In that sense, every on-time credit card payment is not just about today's bill, but about shaping the cost of your future. Rewards programs can also become valuable tools when approached wisely. Airline miles, hotel points, and cashback are often dismissed as gimmicks, and indeed they're dangerous when used to justify overspending. But in the hands of someone disciplined, they act as bonuses. Consider Thomas, who traveled frequently for work in 2019. By charging his flights and hotels to a rewards card and paying the balance in full, he accumulated enough points to take his family on a vacation worth $3,000. What would have been an expense became a benefit extracted from the very machine that traps others. Yet the greatest form of leverage is not in rewards or scores, but in mindset. When you treat the card as a tool rather than a lifeline, you shift the balance of power. You no longer see it as borrowed money, but as a temporary extension of your own. You use it to organize, to simplify, to extract value, but never to mask a shortfall. In this way, the card serves you instead of enslaving you. The transformation from victim to master lies in choices made daily. Pay in full. Track expenses. Resist the illusion that the limit is your money. In doing so, you bend the system back toward your favor. The plastic that once whispered promises of freedom becomes silent, obedient, a tool you control. That is the essence of leverage. Not being free of the card, but making the card work for you. The true art of leverage comes when you begin to align your card usage with long-term goals rather than short-term desires. Every transaction becomes intentional. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this today?" you ask, "Will this serve me tomorrow?" That shift in mindset separates those who are trapped from those who thrive. Consider Emily, who in 2020 used her card only for expenses already built into her budget: utilities, insurance, groceries. Each month she tracked every charge, repaid the full balance, and collected travel rewards. After 2 years, she had accumulated enough points to cover round-trip tickets for her entire family to Europe, a value of nearly $5,000. The trip did not cost her extra spending. It was a reward for discipline. Where others surrendered money to interest, she extracted value without debt. Leverage also appears in protection. Credit cards often provide extended warranties, purchase insurance, and fraud safeguards that cash or debit cannot match. Imagine buying a laptop for $1,200. When it breaks after 11 months, the manufacturer's warranty might have expired, but the card's extended coverage could save you the cost of replacement. Instead of losing another $1,000, you keep your money because the card acted as a shield. In this way, leverage is not only about earning more, but about losing less. Another form of power lies in liquidity. Using a credit card allows you to keep cash in your account a little longer, creating flexibility. For someone managing a small business or navigating a regular income, that buffer can make the difference between crisis and calm. Take Roberto, who ran a catering service in 2018. He charged supplies on his card, kept cash in his account for payroll, and repaid the balance in full when his clients paid their invoices. The card became a bridge, not a burden. Without it, he might have lost employees. With it, he maintained trust and stability. Yet leverage requires vigilance. The same tool that builds your credit score can destroy it if misused. Missing one payment by 30 days can drop your score by dozens of points, raising the cost of future loans. Carrying a balance above 30% of your limit can signal risk to lenders, even if you never miss a payment. The system rewards precision, punishes negligence, and never forgives complacency. To wield leverage is to accept responsibility, to treat every swipe as a decision that echoes beyond today. The paradox of credit cards is simple. They are both chains and wings. In careless hands, they bind you to years of repayment and regret. In disciplined hands, they lift you, providing rewards, protection, and opportunities that cash alone cannot offer. The difference is never in the card. It is always in the cardholder. And when you learn to turn credit into leverage, you discover that the very tool designed to ensnare millions can become a quiet ally in your pursuit of financial strength. Chapter 6. A new relationship with money. Freedom with credit does not come from fear, nor from reckless indulgence. It comes from balance, from treating money not as a master or an enemy, but as a servant. A credit card, like any tool, reflects a hand that holds it. If you grip it with desperation, it will cut you. If you wield it with discipline, it can carve paths toward opportunity. The challenge is not in rejecting plastic altogether, but in reshaping the way you see it. The first shift in perspective is to stop measuring wealth by access to credit. Too many people believe that a high credit limit is a sign of success, as if the bank's willingness to let you borrow $10,000 proves your strength. True wealth is not about how much you can borrow, but about how much you do not need to borrow. It is measured in choices, in peace of mind, in the ability to withstand emergencies without leaning on debt. When you carry that mindset, the card no longer defines you. It simply serves you. Take Michael, who once lived paycheck to paycheck in 2006. He carried balances across 3 cards and believed the limits made him powerful. Only when he shifted his focus towards saving did he realize the truth. By building a small reserve, first $500, then $1,000, then several months of expenses, he discovered a freedom that no credit limit could provide. The card became a convenience rather than a lifeline. He described it later as the difference between standing on solid ground and balancing on a rope. A new relationship with money also means recognizing that every swipe is a choice about your future, not just your present. When you use credit to buy something unnecessary, you are not only spending dollars, you're spending time, energy, and opportunities that could have been invested elsewhere. But when you use credit deliberately, tied to expenses you already planned to cover, you turn that same action into efficiency. The plastic does not change. The intention does. Another transformation occurs when you detach identity from spending. Advertisers work tirelessly to convince you that what you buy defines who you are. They tie credit cards to images of luxury, adventure, and prestige. But your value is not embossed on a piece of plastic. It is written in the way you manage your resources, care for your responsibilities, and invest in your growth. To break free from this illusion is to reclaim dignity from a system designed to sell it back to you. The journey toward a new relationship with money is not about perfection. Mistakes will happen, a late payment, an impulse buy, a moment of weakness. The difference is in how you respond. Instead of shame, you choose accountability. Instead of denial, you choose correction. Each decision becomes a step, not just away from debt, but toward wisdom. And wisdom, once gained, is a wealth no creditor can ever repossess. When you reach the point where the card no longer controls you, something profound happens. The fear that once accompanied every statement disappears. You no longer dread the envelope in the mailbox or the notification on your phone. Instead, you view the card as one more instrument in the orchestra of your financial life. Neither the loudest nor the most important, but useful when played correctly. That shift is not only financial, it is emotional and spiritual. It is the difference between surviving and living with intention. Think of Rosa, who in 2008 carried more than $15,000 in debt. For years she felt trapped, convinced she would never be free. Through persistence and discipline, she repaid every balance. By 2016, she was debt-free, and instead of abandoning credit cards altogether, she rebuilt her relationship with them. She used one card for her household expenses, paid it in full each month, and collected travel rewards. Years later, she took her grandchildren on a vacation to Florida, paid entirely with those points. To her, the trip symbolized more than leisure. It was proof that she had tamed the beast and turned it into an ally. A healthy relationship with money also means teaching others what you have learned. Children, friends, and even colleagues absorb your habits more than your words. When they see you using credit responsibly, tracking expenses, paying in full, refusing to chase status, they learn that money is not magic but management. In this way, your discipline ripples outward, shaping a culture where people are less vulnerable to the illusions of debt. There is also a deeper truth. Money, like fire, reveals the heart of the one who holds it. In careless hands, it destroys. In wise hands, it builds. A new relationship with money acknowledges that credit cards are neither villains nor saviors. They are tools, reflections of choices, amplifiers of discipline or indulgence. To see them clearly is to strip away the myths and stand face to face with your own values. You may never escape the presence of credit cards in the modern world. Stores, hotels, airlines, and businesses will continue to promote them, to seduce with points and privileges. But you can escape the chains. You can walk into a store, swipe your card, and know that the transaction is yours, not borrowed, not mortgaged, not postponed. That knowledge is freedom. In the end, the real power was never in the plastic. It was always in you. The card is silent until you give it a voice. It is powerless until you hand it authority. When you reclaim that authority, you discover that financial freedom is not about the absence of credit cards, but about the presence of wisdom. And once wisdom takes root, no debt, no interest rate, no advertisement can enslave you again.